This is Mark Millardi, and this is Unprecedented Comments. This is where we take your feedback, your comments that you've posted to my Facebook page, that you've posted on YouTube in response to our video podcast, our Unprecedented podcast. We want those questions, and we're actively seeking them out. So we've selected just a couple here that we can address in this segment, and this will be an ongoing feature that we'll build into the podcast series. The first is, there's been questions that have come, and I'll name a couple of specific folks here. One of our viewers and somebody who's been very instrumental in forming the podcast, Amanda Barber. Another is Gino Dykstra, who has been with us from the outset, and Lisa Woodhouse, who's also been with us from the beginning of this broadcast. They've asked specifically about the role that big data played in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. I've made my living in the business world for a number of these years. I've been involved in the market research industry, me specifically, and this is unrelated to the task at hand here, but it gives me a reference point from which to address this question. So I've got this market research background and more recently this big data background. And when we use the terminology big data, it's a reference to the fact that with computing power and storage capability being as significant as they are nowadays, and with the availability of all these myriad data feeds that we have, social media data feeds, political polling data feeds, user feedback, survey response data feeds, polling mechanisms, and on and on and on. There's myriad data influences. We've got ready access to those in a cyber realm. We've got sufficient computing power to bring those data sources together and mine those data sources. And then we've got the storage capability to be able to bring together previously unimaginable amounts of information into a data matrix, which can then drive decision-making with insights that previously weren't possible. That area is called big data. It's been one of the large growth areas in U.S. industry with the technology drivers, the tech advancements that have been so profound the last 10 to 15 years, and of course with the emergence of the internet. So we have this very robust big data industry now. Now, how does this relate to the 2016 presidential election? The way it relates specifically is there's an organization, a company called Cambridge Analytica. The backers, the financial backers of Cambridge Analytica are Robert Mercer and his family. Robert Mercer is an industrialist and a venture capitalist who has extreme right-wing proclivities, an extreme right-wing leaning platform. And he has driven a number of initiatives over the years designed to impose those right-wing political sensibilities on the U.S. electoral process. One of the investments he's made, which we've mentioned in our broadcast previously, is Breitbart News, the very far right-wing news organization. That's underwritten and backed financially by Robert Mercer's family. Another investment that he's made over the years is a company called Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica is a very sophisticated big data company that is using, again, unprecedented data feeds and amounts of information, unique data sources. One data source, for example, being if you get online and you might go to Facebook, and you've probably noticed the emergence over the past several years of all types of fun, interactive, light, casual games. Tell us what your favorite colors are. If I could be an animal, what animal would I want to be? If I could be one person in history, what person would I want to be? All those kind of mind games, those casual games that we're engaging in. There's a profound purpose underlying a lot of those games. It's data collection. By having you interact with those games and tell me enough things about yourself, I start to put those data points together with other data points that I may have about you, and I could start to draw a profile, in some cases a psychological profile. I could start to draw a profile that may give me a good indication in conjunction with your own Facebook postings, photos that you've got on Facebook. I could start to draw a pretty good psychological profile of you as an individual, what your political leanings are, what your opinions are on society, on culture, et cetera, et cetera. That's the emergence of, again, previously unavailable data sources that companies like Cambridge Analytica use in a data mining capacity. And at the root of it all, specific to Cambridge Analytica, is political persuasion. Their claim to fame is their ability to use myriad data sources and to use those data sources in a creative way where they can draw psychological profiles and predictive models that will tell them effectively how a certain constituency of people will vote in an upcoming election. And Cambridge Analytica makes their money that way. They worked on behalf of the Brexit backers when Britain removed itself from the European Union, the so-called Brexit, the British exit from the EU. Cambridge Analytica was the data source that that was underneath much of the work that was done behind Brexit and making Brexit successfully pass through the British population. In similar fashion, Cambridge Analytica was involved in the attempts to swing the vote in Holland, the Dutch elections fairly recently, and it played a profound role in the Trump campaign. As we've mentioned before, Robert Mercer backs Breitbart. Breitbart staffed a lot of the people, including Steve Bannon, who were key advisors to Donald Trump. And then they gave Donald Trump, specifically Trump's son, Jared Kushner, access to Cambridge Analytica's data mining capabilities during the 2016 presidential election cycle. So bottom line, big data played a profound role in helping Trump and his administration target messages in a very finite way among the political constituencies that they most needed to influence to swing those votes over to the Trump side of the ledger. Data mining was used profoundly. Cambridge Analytica played a big role in that respect. And if anything, going forward, 2018, 2020, and beyond, we can expect them to come back in force to use this model that already worked pretty well in 2016 and to refine it as we go forward. So ongoing, we can expect big data to continue to play an ever increasingly large role in the scheme of things. And in the hands of the wrong type of financial backers, the capabilities of big data could be brought to bear in a way that really tears at the fabric of the historical, unbiased U.S. electoral process. Quickly, another question that we've got from a number of viewers, and I'll name a couple of folks here who brought this up. These are folks who have been with us from the beginning. Sherry Morris being one, Patricia Page being another, and Claudia Early being a third. They've actually asked us on camera here, appearing right next to me, there's a little table, and I've got a number of books and magazines on this table. And the question is, what is this reading material? What do you have at your fingertips here? And I'll show you what these things are. Of great relevance and I think topical significance, this is a book called 31 Days. I found this fairly recently. I found it in a used bookstore. This is the definitive story of the 31 days following Richard Nixon's resignation. When Richard Nixon to this date is the only president that's left office of his own devices. Some were obviously assassinated. He left because he was going to be impeached. This is the story of the 31 days following Nixon's resignation, when Gerald Ford ascended to the presidency, and all the goings-on that accompanied that. Fascinating reading, and very topical given where we're at in the political process. This is, as you can see, from the president, Richard Nixon's secret files. This is the authoritative source on the Watergate tapes, the downfall of Nixon and all the intrigue around that. Again, very topical and timely, and hopefully prescient and predictive of what may happen with the Trump administration. And lastly here, current publication, Time Magazine, a couple of weeks ago. As you can see, it depicts the White House as the Kremlin, for obvious reasons, Russian influence in the election, etc. And these were recent finds as well, as you can probably get an indication of. I traffic used bookstores and used magazine stores quite regularly. These two I found, which are spot on, right in the wheelhouse of where we're at politically. Special issue of Time Magazine from August of 1974. This is, as you can see on the cover, The Healing Begins. Nixon left, Ford stepped in, Time Magazine covered it, And last, but also a great piece of history, Newsweek magazine, March 11th, 1974, indicted Haldeman, Ehrlichman, John Dean, John Mitchell, all the president's men, as they've been referred to, Nixon's inner circle, all indicted. I think in total 48 people were indicted as part of the Watergate scandal. Again, perhaps prescient, perhaps an indication of where things are leading with the Trump administration. So that's what I'm reading. Thanks for the questions. We invite you to keep the questions coming. We want to interact with you. We want to bring you into this broadcast. We want to address the issues that are most important from your standpoint. So keep the commentary going. Let's make this interactive. This is Mark Millardi, and this is Unprecedented Comments.